All right. Well, it's 10:30. Welcome everyone. I know we'll have some people still trickling in, um, but we can get started. I think in the interest of time. Welcome everyone. My name is Sumit Mahaur. I'm the director of business development for North America, focusing primarily on UA. Um, but Mintegral overall kind of is a one-stop solution for developers and advertisers alike. We are really unique in that we bridge the East and the West together. So it really helps kind of give you worldwide access to inventory, and that's really what sets us apart. We're really excited to have Sensor Tower and Kooapps join us. So I'd like to introduce Mike and CK, and maybe Mike, you could kick us off with your introduction, and then we'll go to CK.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Nate. And hi, everyone. Thanks so much for being here. My name's Mike Gullo, and I'm on Sensor Tower side. So I am a senior account manager on the gaming team here at Sensor Tower. Sensor Tower is a mobile app analytics firm, so providing data around downloads and revenue estimates, some advertising intelligence we'll talk through today, ASO, retention, active users, all of the acronyms that we all know and love. As a gaming account manager, I'm based in LA, but work with gaming-focused firms all over the world. That's publishers, developers, UA teams, investors, MMPs, everything in between. Anything gaming is kind of my jam. Before Sensor Tower, I was at WB Games, working in product and developer relations. And I'm thrilled to be here today and talk shop with CK and Sumit. CK, you want to say hey?
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is CK. I'm co-founder and CEO of Kooapps. We're a mobile gaming studio headquartered in Seattle with over 200 million downloads. Our most popular titles are Snake.io, Stacky Bird, and Pictoword, and we make unified casual games where we take hyper-casual games and redesign them with rich IP, meta progression, and live events.
Great, thank you both for that introduction. It's fantastic. We're really happy to have both of you here. Our webinar is focused on data and creative insights on how to scale your title. So this is good for both developers and publishers alike. I wanted to kind of call out your attention to the right-hand side for attendees. There's a couple polls that are going to be given throughout the presentation. So please participate. It's going to give us a good insight into who's in the audience and how to tailor our responses. And then also there's a little interactive portion that CK's put together as well. So watch out for that in the poll section. We're also going to have an ebook pop up at some point in there. So please, it's free. So please look out for that and download it. It's got a lot of insights for you. We're here to kind of answer any questions you may have at the end. So I think Sensor Tower is known for giving, data-driven insights to the industry. So I'd like to kick it off to Mike to maybe give us a little bit of a, quote unquote, state of the union, sort of, so to speak, on the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, thanks, Sumit. So let's start by talking through kind of revenue growth over the past few years. And this is going to be specific to mobile games as a cohort. When I talk about revenue, all revenue for Sensor Tower is net. So this is going to be after that platform fee. And the TLDR here is it's growing, continuing to grow. So we did see mobile game revenue spike during the start of the pandemic, with largest year-over-year growth in Q2 2020 at 33%. First time that we measured mobile games earning more than 20 billion globally in that corner. Really staggering number and exciting milestone for the industry. That revenue growth, as you can see from the visualization, has continued in the following quarters. 25% year-over-year growth in Q1 of this year, easily outpacing growth during the prior 2 years. So kind of interesting here to see as things normalize throughout the world, or at least whatever this new normal is, how revenue is continuing to grow from an IAP subscription and kind of paid app perspective. I'm really interested to see in this soon to be ending quarter and the rest of 2021, how this kind of goes and how much of this is new users coming in. We know that that's a large part of this, but also firms getting better at monetizing and being able to take advantage of this kind of new user base that has come into the platform. On that note, looking at a download perspective, we saw that the download surge preceded that of revenue. So it came before that revenue spike, which totally makes sense. You need to pull in new users in order to monetize them. We're assuming that consumers are turning to mobile games for entertainment during office and school closures. But for those of you playing Snake.io, maybe during industry webinars right now as well, you tell me. We've seen mobile game adoption slow from a downloads perspective after its peak in Q2 2020, but it's still well above pre-pandemic levels. If you look kind of towards the middle of this visualization, we can see Q4 2019 being just before pandemic really kind of rocked the world. And if you fast forward to the right side of the graph, you'll see even though this has normalized a little bit, it's still really well above kind of pre-pandemic levels. And even as countries begin to reopen, this will be an interesting trend to follow. Zooming in a little bit on kind of genre perspective, let's start with hyper casual and blue there up at the top. Absolutely crazy figures. So hyper casual installs climbed from 757 million in Q1 of 2018 to over 3.4 billion in Q1 of this year. So that is it's somewhere around a 4.5 times multiple, like absolutely staggering for the hyper casual genre. That genre was responsible for 31% of the downloads that we saw in Q1 of this year. And no other genre had more than 12%. So this is definitely skewing towards the hyper casual side, as we can see in the visualization. Other genres like shooters, puzzle titles, so on, have seen downloads dip compared to the highs at the beginning of the pandemic. But most genres, like we saw in the global slide just before, are still on a healthy growth trend from pre-pandemic levels. Mm-hmm. So while that might not be exactly like Q2 2020 gangbusters, everybody stuck at home, we're still seeing sustained growth and kind of continued trends that way. Switching gears a little bit to the advertising side of things. So US share of voice by publisher. Share of voice for Sensor Tower is kind of a proxy for impressions. So if you have more share of voice, then you have more impressions. Just think about it that way. And from a publisher perspective, this means, let's take Google. So AdMob on the top right there. Google is placing 22% of its ad inventory on puzzle games and puzzle titles, 18% on hyper casual, and so on and so forth down the list. So puzzle was the top genre by ad publishing share of voice on most of the networks that Sensor Tower tracks. We saw hyper casual had the highest share of voice on the remaining networks, but tabletop's up there as well. So a lot of networks are choosing to place their titles in their ad assets in tabletop titles, ranking number 2 on a few of these networks and high up on a few of the other ones. And then stick with me, if we switch to same metric, but now we're looking at the advertiser perspective. If we look at AdMob again, this means that of all the impressions that Sensor Tower captured on AdMob, 34% of them were for puzzle games. So the ads themselves are leading to install pages for puzzle titles most of the time on Google AdMob. Again, puzzle games were responsible for more than 30% of mobile game advertising on the bulk of these networks. But strategy and hyper casual genres also advertise a lot, with hyper casual ranking as a top genre on AppLovin and strategy games ranking as a top genre on YouTube. So you can see here, kind of with this data, you're able to look at trends on a network basis, where I don't think it'll be a surprise to most folks here that hyper casual and puzzle are really large on AppLovin, where more mid-core titles are visible on YouTube and some other networks. And kind of interesting to see just how much of the market is taken up by puzzle, hyper casual, and some of these other more kind of casual space titles. So that's what I've got as far as kind of a global recap, and that's where we're at. Kick it back to you, Samit.
Thanks for that perspective. It's really informative. Great to see that, and I hope the audience. I think the audience has garnered a lot of perspective from that as well. We'll kind of hop into sort of some of the questions I've got lined up for you guys. Given that you talked about trends, I'd like to sort of talk about creative trends as well, other than sort of the macroeconomic trends. So CK, I'd love to hear more about what creative trends you're seeing, i.e., or actually focusing on Playables, actually. So could you kind of give us your perspective from the Kooapps perspective?
Yeah, for sure. We're seeing that playable ads have really taken off over the past, especially from my DFA. We're pretty new to playables. We started testing them out about 6 months ago with the help of Mindworks. The team has been amazing there. We've built several playables already. I think we were surprised when iOS 14 came out, and I think because of IDFA on the video prior to IDFA disappearing, our video creatives were the best performing, but Playables really took off after that, and I think it has to do with sort of view through attribution and all of that, and so maybe the algorithms with video creatives sort of took a hit with VTA, and now Playables are on a rise for us. And a good example is on the Unity side. It really was night and day for them. And then Playables, of course, are doing really, really well for us on the Mintegral side as well, which has always been strong. And so, yeah, I think 14.5 Playables are something to watch for everybody.
That's great, and thanks for mentioning MindWorks. That's, for those of you who don't know, that's our creative division here. So if you're looking for Playables or any sort of localized ad content, please do reach out. And sort of in addition to Playables, it'd be good to hear from both of you though about sort of other interactive formats that you've seen performing well this year and maybe even beyond in your predictions. Maybe, yeah, CK, you want to kick it off first, maybe, and then we'll
Yeah,
go
sure. Yeah. I think what we're seeing from each of the networks is that a combination of both video and playable is what performs the best. In some networks, they even allow you to sort of to put them sequentially. So you start off with a video, and then when the video ends, you have a playable end card, or even just a full playable. And so it really depends on the network. But that's actually what we've seen performs the best, where people watch the videos. It's kind of like a tutorial, whereas if you throw them straight into playable, they might not know what the game looks like, how to play the game, and all of that. And so we typically show them a video, and they go, oh, okay, I get it. And then they get to try to play it before they download. And that has really worked really well for us night and day. Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, Mike, do you have any kind of perspective from the overall market on this?
Yeah, kind of a broader look. I would just say there's more. There's more as far as Playables. We're picking more of them up. We're noticing more and more publishers experimenting with them and trying out different things. There are newer ad formats out there, but some of these kind of time and tested methods for figuring out what's working best, what's leading to conversion, and beyond that, what's bringing in the right kind of users. An example of this is I always think of Wordscapes, people fun title, kind of crossword style gameplay, where we're seeing a lot of testing through things like exact same crossword gameplay in a playable, exact same words, exact same music, but the background's different. So maybe you're in a forest for one versus a winter wonderland in another, and seeing those, towards the top of share of voice on a couple different networks, depending on the geo that you're looking at, just kind of shows me how much testing is going on and how much more investment is going towards using both playables and video, where as in the past, we've seen the bulk of kind of ad assets definitely skewing a lot more towards video.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting from even my AM time during an AM. It's little tweaks can make such a big difference. It's so interesting to see that. But in that, in that sort of the tweaking genre, like speaking about all those sort of tweaks you can do, how important is testing when it comes to playables? It'd be great. Maybe CK, you want to take that one?
Yeah, for sure. Testing, it's really all about testing. Creatives are so important. And so we use Sensor Tower on the sourcing side. Our team can come up with 10 ideas, 20 ideas, but but when we're sort of out of ideas, Sensor Tower is really the first place we go look and go, okay, what else is everybody else doing in an industry? Conceptually, if sort of having influencers play your game and then talking about the game, like that concept has the best conversion rate, then we'll test that as well. And so really using Sensor Tower to figuring out what types of creatives in terms of the concept of the creative that people are creating, what types of videos people are creating. Sensor Tower is really good for us on that end. And then, I think, like both of you are saying, small tweaks. We've seen small tweaks be sort of plus 50% on conversion rate, and therefore much stronger in a CPI side. And so each channel is very different in terms of the small tweaks that you can do. Some channels, you put the text inside the campaign and they localize it, whereas other channels, you have to put that in your own video and you localize it yourself. And so, on that end, sort of Play Turbo has been really, really strong for us to be able to change text and then test it out, change text, test it out. And messaging, matters a lot. And I think players are really in a crowded space, lots of advertising. They're looking for messages that really capture the attention and resonate with them. And so, I think common ones are, fail ads, like sort of you show a video, but you fail on purpose, and then says, hey, you failed. And sort of that is like a call to action that makes the player feel like they can do better and they want to try. So testing and iterating, it's super important. We have a whole team, probably 10, 15 people doing, which is a large team for us, doing testing and iterating.
That's great. Yeah, thanks for the insight there. And actually, Play Turbo, for those of you who don't know, is actually a product developed by MindWorks, and that's sort of like a WYSIWYG editor for Playables. So it's super interesting, SaaS-based solution. Encourage you to check that out as well. And then CK, just to follow up, does Kooap have any other sort of new or novel creative strategies for hypercasual other than the sort of tactics you mentioned just before?
Yeah. I think the biggest part we're different from hyper casual is our focus really on our brand and IP. And so in our games, each of our characters has their own personality, has their own narrative, has a character bio, and we really we really pride ourselves in taking that extra time to design each of the characters, because at the end of the day, I think that's what players resonate with after sort of playing the game beyond 7 days, beyond 30 days. It's really the brand and IP that keeps them coming back. And so it also allows us to then, in our creatives, to be able to test many different characters in our game, and test that in our videos and our playables, and you'd be surprised, some characters definitely have way higher click-through rates than other characters, and so it's very game specific. But having that IP allows us to test all those variants and backgrounds and characters that I think is typically missing in a lot of hyper casual games.
That's excellent. And so, Mike, back to you for the overall perspective in the market in this. Would love to hear what kind of the most effective creative ad creatives are you seeing throughout the industry and different gaming verticals, and maybe can I prod you to maybe show us some examples, perhaps?
Sure. Yeah, happy to. I guess going outside of kind of the casual space, we definitely see some of the let's see how many buzzwords I can use. The hybridization among subgenres in dissonant advertising and all of that. But all that to say, people pay attention. And CK, thanks for calling out Sensor Tower. But people use this tool and different firms in order to figure out what is working. And because we don't have perfect game data for every single game that's ever existed, there's a few leaps that you need to make. But being able to see what's at the top of the charts can be really helpful. So Sumit, yes, I will share. Give me just a second to open this up. And let me know, does this look like Sensor Tower? Is it coming through okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm within our top creatives section. I'm looking at top creatives by share of voice. So again, that's that impression space proxy for games in the US on the Unity network. And I'm just looking at top videos. I'm using our taxonomy to filter specifically for puzzle RPG subgenre. So we're more within kind of the mid-core, core space. Let's take a look at this top one here from May on Unity. Puzzles and Survival, semi-new puzzle RPG entrant from 37 Games, really exciting developer kind of out there. This was first seen a couple months ago and has really been at the top of the charts since then. I'm going to go ahead and play it. Fair warning, this might be a little bit loud, so I'll adjust the volume.
Come on!
Thank you, everyone.
Go, 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 go! What the? Huh? Puzzles and Survival. Play now for free.
Okay, so speak of the devil, CK called out fail states, fail conditions, where we saw match 3 gameplay in an intense kind of prison break zombie setting. Big scary zombie at the end ended up overtaking us and destroying our entire party. We've got a cool end card. We've got intense music. lot of themes there that'll kind of translate between subgenres. But on that fail condition, let's jump over and look at now playables and looking at a different genre, looking at shooters. I wanted to showcase this one from War Machines. So I'm going to click in here really quick. This is me actually playing it. I'm moving the tank. I'm going to zoom in on the chopper. And notice I'm lined up right there. I'm feeling twitchy. I've got my red dot right in the zone. I'm going to hit shoot. And lo and behold, I've somehow managed to fail the mission. So just want to call out there that across subgenres, across playable types, there's definitely different, creative strategies here that are being showcased. And a lot of the times they're shared, one of those being fail conditions is definitely something we see a lot of. Not every single time, but it's something that people pay attention to and are using in a lot of different ways. Also, I'm going to keep trying, and eventually I'm going to shoot that chopper down. It's going to happen.
Sounds like you have to download the game for that. Thanks for showing the tactics there. That's super helpful and informative. I think I'd like to shift gears a little bit from creative to more the App Store optimization side of things. So I hear from a lot of developers it's super important, and love to hear perspective from both of you, both on like how Kooapps does it and maybe some best practices from Sensor Tower as well.
Yeah, definitely. We spend a lot of time on App Store optimization. It's really important for us, and on that end, I'd say the typical ones are your keywords, your descriptions matter a lot. But wanted to also bring up sort of app icon and screenshots. We spend a lot of time on, and I actually have a case study here. So this is a game of ours. It's a hybrid home decoration game with blast puzzle mechanics called Pocket Family. And so I have a poll here. Which do you think is a better app icon that has higher conversion rate and lower CPI? So please go into the poll section, and
people are chiming in.
Nice. Thanks for chiming in, guys. This is fun to see the totals.
Ooh, A's in front, but C's right there. Also, I like how we went A straight to C. Good testing there, CK.
Oh
my God.
We're in a dead heat.
Oh, wow.
Okay, we need some tiebreakers here. Come on. Anyone who has... Oh, there we go. Okay.
Are more answers coming in? I think there's...
Yeah, a couple more.
Yeah, more. Nice, okay.
Man, the audience is split. I thought A was a clear winner, but it's looking pretty split. We're gonna have to go to CK for the real answer. I think the crowdsourcing intelligence is not really coming to consensus here.
We have a whole bunch of UA people on the call, so they're just going to be like, the answer is you have to test it.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what's going on here. So turns out C is the winner, and turns out it's not even close. So this is a Google Play screenshot of the A/B test that we ran with those two icons, and C was in fact 60 to 120% better than A, and so it was wildly better. And this is a screenshot of our downloads, and our downloads actually ended up tripling. And so this is one example of where app icons and screenshots and descriptions, keywords, and all that matter a lot. And so we spend quite a bit of time on this as well.
Oh yeah, Mike, did you want to add anything to that?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think from an AOSO perspective, just like CK called out, and if I could have $1 for every time I'm going to say testing is important on this call, I'd be a wealthy man. One thing I've been keeping an eye on recently, I'm going to go ahead and share the platform one more time. Jump in here. So Royal Match, kind of newish classic Match 3 title from Dream Games. They've had a lot of traffic on the UA side, and using our app update timeline tool, I noticed that recently they switched up some screenshots. So along with the new version and some top IAP shifting, I'm just going to open the before and after here. And so these are the screenshots for iPhone. Right after that, they did the same thing for iPad. Here's the before. So we've got, match 3 board on the bottom, maybe a turns counter or some kind of energy filler gauge on the right, and then your timer on the left. But really the action here is at the top, where we've got some drama around these scary spikes that are turning and coming towards our royal king here. If I shift over to the new one, so this is the updated version, everything in the bottom half here should look really, really similar. Same board, really similar kind of mechanic-driven features here. But we've got a lot more drama and a little bit higher production quality here on the king himself, where the spikes are way closer. He's a lot more freaked out. Any Game of Thrones fans out there, this reminds me a lot of Hodor. Now, keep your eye on the timer and the gauge here as I switch between the two. Okay, so here's the old one and the new one. I'm going to do it one more time. Keep your eye on the timer. Old one, new one. And so we can see, in addition to creating more drama up here at the top, in the middle, they've kind of shrunk the font here, maybe to draw more focus towards the top and away from this timer and gauge that maybe aren't as kind of strong performers when it comes to pulling the eye in. Why this is important, not only for ASO and conversion and driving organics, all that, but if I jump into some of Royal Match's advertising on TikTok recently, there's somewhere top 10. Yeah, number 6 here. Let's watch this creative really quick and see if you notice any similarities to what we just saw. Okay, so that time, we actually saw a win condition, but notice how much of sort of the narrative there was built around this king and the king escaping. This creative, we actually picked up back in May, which is a full month before these ASO shifts were kind of brought into play. So both on the ASO and creative side, those can kind of inform each other. And if you're seeing something performing really well on the paid side of things, maybe you want to take a look at your icon, your screenshots, your metadata, and see what can I highlight here that might resonate with users in a similar way, and vice versa as well. So I thought that was kind of an interesting one from a newer title.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, in the vein, since we're looking at other, what other developers and advertisers are doing, how important is kind of competitive intelligence on iterating in these sort of creatives? Maybe, Mike, you want to maybe start this one off?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like I said before with my hybridization sentence, I think that's a huge part of it, where it's not that every word has been written at this point. There's certainly innovation to be had out there, and that's one of my favorite parts about being in this industry. But borrowing is very helpful and can help, with data-driven decisions, limit some of the risk there. And also kind of increase your ceiling for whether it's conversion or you're advertising towards a certain type of user, whatever you're optimizing towards. Being able to look at other competitors in your space and beyond just really helps make sure that you're on the right track. Check your assumptions and use some kind of data to prove those out. One example here, for anyone kind of following the space, Top War, 4X title game with merge mechanics. They're just all over the place as far as creatives. They're towards the top, and I'm sure spend is a huge part of their kind of strategy. But recently, employing some more kind of casual mechanics within their creatives. I saw one recently that was around stacking, where you're kind of running over things and stacking landmass to increase your army and all of that. 4X is not known for casual mechanics generally, but leaning into the merge mechanic that they have, and potentially at this point in their life cycle, looking to increase their user base through a cohort of users that they haven't targeted before. And maybe casual mechanics help that way. So I think competitive intelligence and getting to create data-driven decisions is really everything in the space, unless you want to just kind of close your eyes and see where the dart lands.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what Mike said. It's really, super important. It's in our daily habit and our daily workflow to really check competitive intelligence with Sensor Tower. In addition to sourcing ideas, I think what's also really interesting is to learn a couple of the counterintuitive success cases. So ones like the Homescapes, Hero Wars, where they have a mini game for the app icon, and a lot of their ads are sort of mini games that is actually not representative of a game. That's something that we would never come up with to test out, but from competitive intelligence go, oh wow, like, does this actually work? Maybe we should try it, right? So there's a lot of counterintuitive examples like this. I would say like the fail example was also a counterintuitive example for us. Like we'd never thought about making videos of people failing prior to seeing everybody else do it and going, okay, maybe we should try that as well. And so, yeah, I think in addition to sourcing ideas in terms of format and concept, it's really also, learning what counterintuitive examples that is working in the market and testing those out for our games. And, for some of the games it works, but for some of them it doesn't. It's really, again, testing there. But the competitive intelligence part is really important as well, because there's a lot of things that are, again, sort of not obvious and that you wouldn't really think of. And it's a little bit like we've tested sort of the concept of like red and green. Like, for example, in in-app purchase buttons, we would think that green, means like a go. So you should buy this in-app purchase. But we've actually seen red do better, because red catches your attention more. If you look at a stoplight and it's red, you're constantly staring at it. Whereas when it's green, you're like basically not looking at it. So a little bit like banner blindness. And so things like that like is a little bit counterintuitive is really, really important in using competitive intelligence and learning that and testing that.
Man, CK, every time I hear something like that, I just feel like, how have I not realized this? It makes me feel like a sheep that I just follow along, but it's a great insight.
So CK, when inspiration does strike and you come up with a creative, how long does Kooapps test the creative, and what's that sort of iteration cycle look like?
Yeah, sure. It depends on which game and specifically the daily downloads of those games. We typically test about 4 to 5 days. And then in smaller games, we'll maybe test longer, like a week or two in A/B tests. In terms of videos, our target is 5,000 impressions. And so we'll test it on any of our channels. And for example, on Mintegral, we'll shoot for 5,000 impressions and then measure the CPI and then go, okay, yes or no. If sometimes we need a little bit more data and we'll wait till 10,000 impressions if it's close to our target. But typically 5,000 impressions, we'd be able to tell whether this creative is a go or not for us. On the ASO side, like with screenshots and app icons, it's about 1,000 installs per variant. Is what we're shooting for. And so, yeah, again, depending on UA, it could happen in a few days, like with Snake.io, happens in sort of 1 or 2 days, whereas with some of our games, it's a bit longer.
That's great. I think I wanted to shift our focus to the platform differences we have going on here. And I was looking at the polls just now. We have some answers here, but if you guys want to maybe answer the poll, the differences on what you're shifting focus on, if you shifted focus towards Android, we can kind of watch that live right now, and then we'll get into the platform differences that CK is seeing. Right now, it seems like a huge shift toward Android, but we're waiting for a few more answers, looks like.
Yeah, and folks, when you're looking at polls, just make sure you scroll down, and you'll see that poll.
Oh, yeah, good call, Mike. Okay, yeah, I think we can... CK, maybe we'll start off, and maybe at the end we'll get a total here.
Yeah, sure. So we're definitely seeing a lot of people, a lot of the budgets shifting towards Android. Android CPMs for us have steadily gone up over the past 3 months, a considerable rate. We're at all-time high now in terms of CPMs, and higher than December, January holiday season last year. And so it's been a pleasant surprise. Prior to 14.5, like Google or mainly Facebook had been sort of making predictions about CPMs dropping 50% and it being doomsday. It's just been interesting that we're seeing headwinds on CPM side on iOS, but then Android has been a very pleasant surprise. And I think it's because of the 100 campaign limit per ad network per app. And so this really severely limits the amount of testing that you're able to do on the iOS side. especially because there's no country tag on these campaigns. And so like if you run one campaign per country, like you basically have no testing. And so we're seeing a lot of test budget being shifted over to Android.
That seems to track with the poll here. It looks like 57% of respondents said they've shifted more focus to Android. So it seems to be right on the mark there. And what's the other interesting thing? The other poll we have is for geos, so we can kind of go to that. It's a huge. I think it's a really important topic in general. So we'd like to kind of focus on that. And again, to the audience, please, feel free to respond in the geo section, the geo poll, and we'll kind of get started in that discussion here, and we'll jump back to the results. And this is more for Mike. Are there any specific differences between geos in terms of ad format or creative performance for those respectively?
Yeah, absolutely. Similar to CK's answer, it's going to depend one on the geo, but also on the genre, the firm itself, and what they've had kind of a history of from a creative perspective. Let's stick with Top War though, since I was just talking on that. I'm jumping back in. I'm getting pro at sharing at this point.
I love the examples. I'm excited.
It's fun. I get to play around in here all day anyways. So if I'm checking out kind of 4X titles on Facebook by video, I think it's this one I want to call out really quick. All right, so you're amassing land. It's got, cutesy, very feel-good music. There are some battle mechanics in there, but it's seemingly made up by a lovely major key and a few kind of lighter sound effects there. So that's the US version. But if I jump over to Japan and look at, what they're capturing, let's take a look here at very similar. So I'm going to save us going through the entire thing, but long story long here, it's the exact same creative, but with a Japanese voiceover on it. And for anyone who's a native speaker, I'm not. I've been told that was not exactly somebody that feels super familiar with native tongue of Japanese, which is very likely on purpose. So this can be an example of a creative that's performing well in the West being driven over to the East and trying a couple of different things, adding in voiceover. There was a subtitle there as well. And then having that voiceover be a little bit off, a little bit weird, or at least attention getting. CK, I'm thinking back to your kind of green versus red argument, where if it's something that's maybe a little bit out of place, and we've seen this with misspellings as well, maybe that's a little bit more to capture the user's eye and take it in this way. So kind of layering all of those things on top of each other while adding in localization as well. Top War's kind of going with the kitchen sink approach, as I like to say.
That's true. I have seen the same thing with misspellings. It's very interesting to see that kind of manifest. And I think since you brought up the other creative from Japan, it's you gave us a good example of localization there. So that's perfect. Thank you for segueing that so perfectly for me. Could you talk about a little bit how you localize your creatives, and then love to hear after that, Mike. Love to hear kind of the broader perspective as well.
Yeah, definitely. And then closing off what Mike was saying, like to echo what he said. So I learned Japanese for a couple of years, and in that creative, the guy was like, "Oh, here's what I'm gonna do." Wait, what? What happened? How come I got shot? Sort of. And so the voiceover was definitely on the funny side. On like, I'm not familiar with this game. What's going on? Why did I get shot? And so definitely makes it more entertaining and all that. So localizing is really, really important for us. I'd say for our games, about 15% of DAU is in the US. And so a majority of our DAUs worldwide, Russia, Brazil, Southeast Asia, Middle East are pretty big geos for us. And so localization, we basically build from day one for all of our games. And Playtober really makes that super easy on the localization side and testing different messaging. And so our marketing team goes in, uses Google Translate for some of the languages we're not so familiar with, and then we test it on Play Turbo and ship it, and then measure conversions. And so yeah, really being able to test and localize your messages is really important.
That's great. I think Play Turbo and it has a number of insights like that. The one you just mentioned, that Japanese creative there. So feel free to talk to your representative. They could share that insight with you. We have a couple of presentations that we can share. And kind of looking at the poll now, we're looking at what's the best performing geo for people. It seems like mostly North America, but the second one is APAC. I think is that kind of mirrored in your sort of data there, CK, and maybe Mike too.
Yeah. I would say for us, for sure, North America is number one. I'd say probably Brazil, Middle East, and Russia were number two, and then APAC number three. Yeah. So I'd say LATAM is maybe a little bit larger than APAC for us, but Middle East and Russia are also pretty big, high up there.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to share one more time.
Okay, go for it.
SDK is a Sensor Tower user, but I feel like we've got some ST folks in the crowd here. If I take a look at our game intelligence tool really quick, so I'm using Sensor Tower's taxonomy. I'm looking at the past 2 years, both stores together from a downloads perspective. And like, this is pretty on the money. You know, we see India at the top with downloads, but monetization isn't really there. But like right behind them, US, CK, I think you called out Brazil, Russia, Mexico, a few of these other ones, Saudi Arabia in the top 20, Pakistan down here. And then if we look at like revenue trends here, this is going to be, again, skewing towards IAPs, subscription, paid app side. But one thing that's interesting to me as folks in the poll are calling out North America and then APAC, like revenue distribution for US, okay, so 29% on 11% of downloads. But then look at Japan, 21% of revenue on 1.3% downloads. That is absurd, like absolutely insane. And then China for us is iOS only. And even with that, you know, we're still picking up 18% of revenue for them. So I think you're definitely on point there with US. And then look at our next three are all APAC as far as top performing geos. So well done, Paul. You know your stuff.
Yeah, that just reiterates the importance of focusing on other geos. And I think that's great to see the data kind of back that up. And again, Mintegral is a great place to go for APAC, so keep that in mind. I wanted to kind of give sort of more of a nod to the data here and see, you know, because data can set you free in any industry, in my opinion. So in collecting and analyzing, you know, in-ad data, what are the sort of takeaways there, CK, for you guys?
Yeah, sure. So we use Tenjin, and in Tenjin, where we can see sort of which campaigns are doing better, which creatives are doing well, and then on which site IDs and such. And so, yeah, we definitely take a look at that. There's a lot of data in terms of like sort of multiplying all three of those, the combination of the three. But yeah, we try our best and try to find patterns and bid more where we can, and where we're seeing good return on ad spend, ROAS. Long term, I would say we aren't, maybe because we're a smaller team, we aren't super reliant on sort of a creative and app sort of combination. But perhaps long term, I'm not sure with 14.5 whether that's still possible. Yeah, sort of not quite sure, but yeah, I'd say we're dabbling a little bit, and we just have whatever Tenjin has that is from the ad networks. But on this aspect, I would say we're probably a little bit too small in terms of studio size to be able to really leverage that. Like let's say Zynga scale, I'm sure they look at that data a lot more than we do.
Right. Well, thanks for the insight. I think, and we did touch on this a little bit, but where are you seeing the top performing geo? Or sorry. I guess we got rid of that question. We skipped that because we did it already. So, well, we kind of went over the top spending geo. So really wanted to kind of close out with asking CK, where are you seeing the highest ad spend right now?
Oh yeah, for sure, Mintegral. That's why I'm here. But yeah, I'd say especially on the iOS side, Mintegral has been a very, very strong partner the entire time, and then also with sort of iOS 14.5 headwinds, been very impressed that unlike some channels I shall not name, yeah, we're seeing very steady CPIs and very steady volume, and we're very happy with yeah, with our campaigns on Mintegral.
Excellent, thank you, CK. So we've gone through a lot here. I just want to kind of recap. So we talked about creative strategy, how to optimize your campaigns, and then sort of the best geos and maybe best future geos there for you to expand into. And so I'd like to open it up to the audience to kind of to give us some questions. So we have a couple in the chat, but love you to just kind of engage there. Give us any questions you have. We have the panelists are here for a bit, so we can kind of go through your questions. And while we wait for that, here's our information. You connect with any of us. Here's our LinkedIn's, and feel free to reach out with any questions or if you need anything from any of us, please do reach out to us. Yeah, so with that, we can kind of get started with the Q&A. If you are ready, we have one from Jamie here. Is I think one of the first questions, and it was, this is in the difference between Android and iOS. We kind of talked a bit about that, but she was asking, or he or she was asking about what the differences are between creative testing specifically on Android and versus iOS. So, either of you, happy to hear your responses on that.
Yeah, happy to take a stab. We're not seeing a lot of differences in terms of the creative work, like sort of the concept and which characters you use, background colors. We're seeing that be pretty consistent. Probably the part that is slightly different is because the Android device has like a back button. So we have seen sort of creatives not have like a close button. And so sort of Android specific device form factor in terms of like UI UX, we've seen slight differences there. But I don't think that has sort of caused like a dramatic sort of difference in CPI or anything, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'd add is just on the ASO front, this is semi-new, but I'm sure most people on this call are aware where Apple recently announced that they're going to allow for A/B testing on the App Store. And that's, your app page. And I think don't quote me, I could be wrong. I think it's up to 35 different product listings that you're able to use. This hasn't been rolled out yet, but, that's semi playing catch up on Google. There's a couple of different things that they're offering. Just qualitatively, what I'm hearing from some of the users and clients that I work with is that, great, we want more testing. That's awesome. But this still isn't quite as robust as some kind of third-party vendors and the granularity that they're able to provide with testing and the amount of segmentation for users that you're going after. So that's just something to keep an eye on in the news that Apple recently allows. On the ASO perspective, you'll be able to A/B test on App Store soon.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really great insight. Thank you for that. And then we have a question from Shy. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Do either of you find that these ads, I guess, are performing worse if labeled as an ad? So I guess in general, we're showing some examples. I guess this must have been from that time. So do you guys have any insight? I know things kind of have to be labeled as ads, but would love to hear your perspective here.
Yeah. Well, we never try to label it as an ad. And so, I think this is like some channels, like let's say if you go to google.com, it'll say sponsored ad. And so everybody knows it's an ad. I guess in those cases, we don't have much of a choice. Like it is what it is. And at least it's a level playing field for all advertisers on that channel. But typically, I don't think I've ever seen a creative where they themselves sort of label it as an ad, like sort of in addition. But maybe if you test it, it actually does better because it's so different. That might be the case. So
that's exactly what I was going to say. Like the only example I can think of, and I'm blanking on the title, so I'm not going to try, is sort of a meme humor to it. Where it was like the ad of all ads and like, we've got ad. They just said ad 1,000 times. It definitely wasn't top 10, but it cracked the list, maybe top 25 on one of the networks one month. It didn't sustain. And with the way that we capture data, the assumption you have to make there is they threw a whole bunch of spend at it. They got a whole bunch of impressions, but they weren't that happy with the kind of result of it. So test is always a thing. And if you've got an innovative idea around that, cool. But otherwise, I think CK's on track that as much as you can stay away from that and highlight other things depending on your genre. Gameplay mechanics, even if they don't actually have to do with the game. Character progression, narrative, if it's more kind of on the casual side. All depends on who you're going after, but I try and stay away from that if I could.
Awesome. We got a couple more questions coming in, and since we only have a couple questions, I want to kind of get to these, and looks like our audience is holding strong. So if everyone's okay, we're going to go through these last couple questions. So this is a good one from Santesh. I know I'm saying that right. I have an uncle named Santesh. So does displaying an app metadata on creatives like star ratings, reviews, downloads, etc., help with insights?
Yeah. This one we haven't tried mostly because the app stores are a little bit sensitive on this. Like if you were to say, sometimes we put like a testimony and we've gotten flagged by review, and if we say like, Joe Chen thinks this is a good app, like we've gotten flagged for that. And so we're very careful, anything sort of ratings, reviews related, we sort of stay away from. So that's the reason why we haven't done a lot of testing. I know the app store is a little bit sensitive on testimonies and all of that, but yeah, maybe Mike has.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you just have to make sure you know the rules, and they differ between the stores, and they may even differ between geos on the stores. I'm honestly not positive there. I've run into a couple examples there. But things like, and again, depending on your genre here, like real money gaming or anything around, gambling, that kind of thing, you have to be really careful with what you're showing. And then more in the casual space, CK is correct, testimonials are a little bit hairy to get around there. Showcasing things in the game that hint at this can be a way to get around that. But again, it's going to be playing with it and see what sticks and what combination of what you're showing sticks.
Actually, Mike, so you just mentioned real money gambling. So we had a question coming from Pratik. Real money game. This is actually addressed to you as well. So like he mentions like rummy poker, sports fantasy. They're getting popular in the indie market. He mentioned, and he's saying they're spending a lot of money advertising. Unfortunately, they're not available in the Google App Store. Do you have any data of categories that are also available on ST?
Yes, yeah, we are able to track really any app that ranks in one of the stores. Sensor Tower is able to pick up in certainly India and most top geos there. It's always interesting, legislature per country. I work with some of these different clients, and even in the US, it seems like now every month a new state approves mobile gambling, and it's hard to keep track up with almost, but it'd be interesting to look. I'm familiar with Rummy Poker to see what's happening with their install campaigns. Is it drawing people to the app and then they're monetizing them in a different way? Is it drawing them to the app to then bring them to a browser version or something like that? I can't speak to how they're getting around that, but it's definitely something that we're able to utilize or visualize on Sensor Tower, and definitely an area of focus for a lot of geos like India that you brought up. Thanks, Pratik.
Awesome. And then final question looks like we have from Mark. He's citing that hyper-casual growth is amazing, but he's asking about if the growth is just limited to installs, or is there some other KPIs like retention and maybe revenue, kind of overall numbers. I think I don't think he's asking for specifics. And how important is it to have real-time multiplayer features in the game?
Yeah, happy to jump in. So Mike's graph was installs, but in terms of ads ARPDAU, it's pretty consistent. I would say it's on the rise, and so revenue is growing sort of just as fast, as, if not slightly faster, especially on the Android side. Past 3 months, I would say we're probably up like 20% on the CPMs because of shifting budgets. And so in terms of revenue, installs, they're both doing really well. And then retention, I think that's like very, very game specific and really depends on the strategy of the studio. In our case, like I mentioned earlier, I think brand and IP we really value, and so we tend to have much higher retention versus typical hyper casual games that say double or triple the retention. And then real-time multiplayer feature, that's super duper important, and that's what we also have in our games. And the way we think about it is, if somebody's playing this game for 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, there's really only sort of two reasons that they're playing. It's either they like the multiplayer aspect of it and the community, or they really like the brand and the IP and the characters and the world. So if you think sort of single player game, why would you play for 60 or 90 days? You really like the story. And then for multiplayer games, you really like the interactions with playing with other people. And so both of those, real-time multiplayer and brand, characters, the world, is going to be increasingly important for hyper casuals, in our opinion.
Awesome. One final question. I guess we have two. Okay, we have two. You guys down for two more questions?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Okay, so what can you say about tower defense in combination with third-person shooter, and what about tower defense games in general in the last few years? That's from Dar. Looks like Dar needs a subscription to Sensor Tower. No, just kidding.
Yeah, without getting too in the weeds, I'd say these are the kind of questions, whether you're looking from a product strategy perspective, creative strategy, M&A, these are the sort of things that I like to use Sensor Tower for and dive into a little bit more. So for tower defense, I don't want to get too in the weeds. I'm playing Rush Royale. It's really good. I like that. It's maybe not performing as well as some other titles across the market or some historic ones. But it has been really interesting to see kind of the evolution of, balloons to random dice to Rush Royale and everything in between, and see how these mechanics and almost this, not only is every match different, right? And that's almost a gotcha mechanic in itself, where it's eliciting a really similar response of like, what's new? Am I going to luck out? I'm disappointed when I don't, but that makes the wins feel that much better. I definitely like to keep track of that, but yeah, follow Sumit Lee. Drop me a line on LinkedIn, and we can get you a demo.
Perfect. That's a great answer. So, and then the final question is from Isabella. A lot of ASO screenshots for gaming apps usually only grab from usually a grab from the app. Do you have an insight on the benefit of adding an extra layer of information with a caption, and same questions for campaigns in adding captions or voiceovers? So
Yeah.
BP question. Go ahead, guys.
Yeah. The app stores definitely prefer no caption and just straight up screenshots in game. Like we've done things where you show the device and then it's like stylish, and then sort of screenshot of the game on the device, and then the device is tilted, and so even things like that sometimes we get flagged for. And so I would say definitely sticking to what you have in the app, the gameplay. For screenshot or for captions, the way we use captions is on like specific features that we know our users want. So like custom skins and customizations, the fact that our game has this, we'll write a caption on there and then have a screenshot dedicated to all of the skins that we have in the game. And that's very, very powerful because everybody has their own preferences. Some people like dogs, some people like cats, some people like dragons and unicorns, and knowing that you have that character in the game definitely helps a ton. And so that's part of the biggest reason we use captions for. We have like sort of captions that also say are fun and addictive, but those tend to not have much impact and really showcasing the features that your audience wants is where we've seen the most plus. Yeah.
Great point, CK. And I always like to say there's people that like dogs, and then there's wrong people. So those are the quotes that I create. The only other thing I'd add here is I would just echo what I said earlier. Before you start creative ideation, whether it's on the ASO front or more paid side, just make sure you know the rules. Like, I don't want you to spin your wheels, go through this with the team, work on something for 2 weeks, and then be like, oh, this is not allowed. So make sure you're checking out, Apple and Google sites there. If you have a rep you can talk to, even better, but I know it's hard to pin them down.
Yeah, totally. Well, thank you guys. This is a fantastic seminar, I think, our webinar. And then we have an exit survey, so where you can win a prize. Looks like it's an Amazon Echo Show 8, which is actually pretty cool. I have one in my kitchen. It's fantastic. It's actually a really cool device. So you guys can win that. And please feel free to reach out to any of us. And thank you guys for sticking around. if we were physical, I would say round of applause for attendees. But I think if you do it virtually, we'll feel the presence of that. So, yeah, jazz hands, perfect. Well, thank you guys, everyone. And with that, I think everyone have a fantastic day and have a fantastic rest of your week. Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
Thanks, everyone.